Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Is the live stream ready? All right, thumbs up. Good. Well, welcome. This is going to be an excellent panel. Hybrid TV, delivering the ultimate TV, and actually, I'm going to change that. The ultimate entertainment experience is what we're here to discuss. Got just a really fabulous group of panelists. Very honored to have these gentlemen joining me on the stage. So let me just introduce myself, and then I'll have everyone give a quick introduction, and we'll get started. So my name is Mark Donnigan. I am VP of Sales and Strategy for a company called Beamr, and we enable next generation and improve streaming experiences. So that's what we do. So I guess, AJ, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, my name is AJ Dugar. I'm with a consulting company called Connected Consulting. And what we do is we focus on international content acquisition and distribution strategies. So it ranges anywhere from licensing the content to preparing it and aggregating it all the way down to distribution and monetization across platforms and devices. That's Connected.
Christophe Louvion, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for MGO. We're a streaming service, movie, TV shows. We cross all the studios and networks. And we have the earliest window that is available, so a lot of the content before DVDs.
Hi, my name is Mark Vina. I run the worldwide marketing function at Sling Media. We make the Sling Box, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. It's been around for about 10 years, and we provide TV Anywhere capability. We can take your TV content on your cable or your satellite subscription, and with an internet connection, stream it anywhere in the world.
My name is Ralph Jacob. I'm Chief Revenue Officer at Verizon Digital Media Services. I'm former CEO of Uplink, the company that was acquired about a year and a half ago. VDMS focuses on simplifying the workflows for today's broadcasters and networks, and my responsibility is to combine the sales with the solution and with the engineering portions of that.
Hi, I'm Scott Holmes, and Chief Marketing Officer of Blue Wave. Best way to describe Blue Wave is it's Netflix in a box, really delivered to help telcos, cable operators, and other more internationally present companies to extend their content and media via the mobile distribution and OTT platforms.
Hi, I am Luciano Niga, as you can see on my name tag here. I lead business development for the metadata group at Rovi. At Rovi, we are offering entertainment discovery solutions for CE manufacturers, service providers, and internet companies through a unified solution from metadata, guides, search, recommendation, and voice recognition technologies. We also have a business optimization package, which includes analytics and an advertising network for advertisers and content owners. And most recently, Rovi has acquired a company named FanTV, or you might know it by the name of Fanhattan, which is a truly unique way of interacting with all the various types of distribution platforms that we're going to be discussing today in a unified interface.
That's great. Okay, well, we're going to organize the discussion this afternoon around basically three vectors as we look at what the ultimate TV or entertainment experience looks like. And that is user experience, content access. So this is sort of accessing content wherever you are, outside the home, mobile networks, et cetera. And then content variety. So, extending the reach of, and this can include MCNs, this can include, niche content. So as we organize our discussion, I'll be specifically focusing on those three vectors. I'd like to, and Lucian, we'll start with you and work down so that AJ doesn't always have to start here. The first question that I have is, can you each take just a minute and tell the audience how you define the TV or the entertainment experience of tomorrow? And I think we're particularly interested in where the convergence or even divergence of pay TV, OTT, premium VOD, whatever else you want to lump in. How do you define? What do you see that the new entertainment experience looks like, and what is it?
Definitely. You'll see maybe across my answers that I mainly answer from the consumer point of view. I believe that technologies, business models, even content needs to be transparent or agnostic for the consumer. That means that the consumer needs to have the ability to search, discover, find relevant content quickly, the content to be meaningful to the consumer through whatever interface they are using. And that means that the technologies that the user interacts with need to have the ability to very quickly find what the user needs, surface it, and deliver it in the quickest and most effective way.
Yes, yeah, small question, Mark, right?
Yeah.
Then we'll start with an easy one.
That's right.
I think that I would answer it, of course, and very similarly I would say mobile, mobile, mobile. I would start there. Because it's really going to be about how consumers will ultimately consume content, how operators are going to extend that content, and how we'll have to have a conversation at some point, about how all the rights management and content creators are going to work in this new ecosystem and environment. But times really are collapsing. We have the binge watching, and we want to be able to access and view content when we want, where we want, and I think we're all very familiar with that. But what I think is going to be a sea change shift is as we're no longer just looking within our borders, right? It's not just about domestic, and we have a lot of access, we have a lot of freedom here in how we access content, but how that starts to look across international markets and vice versa. So I think the real opportunity is now going to be how content creators, technology companies alike are going to be able to start to capture this really growing immense audience overseas that are really anxious to get American content.
Working on the server side of the equation, and judging by the conversations that we had with broadcasters and networks, I think for the next 2 or 3 years we're going to see a lot more focus on the mobile devices, but television is not going to go away tomorrow. That's just not going to happen. But I think from an end user perspective, and I second what Scott and Lucian just said, I think it is less that we are being force-fed, that there is a programming guide that is going to tell us, oh, I can watch this and this at 8 o'clock on Sunday night and then set my DVR on it. It's going to get much, much easier where this content will already be made available and it doesn't matter. I still question today, why do I have to set a DVR when I know that the asset already exists in a digital format somewhere? I should just be able to point my browser, mobile device, tablet, whatever else to that piece of content and start playing. And I think that's where we see the millennials right now driving the networks to actually loosen up their a la carte stance, where they're saying, I don't want my packages unbundled. That is undoubtedly just around the corner.
Well, for Slingbox and Sling Media, I think the way we would define the word I would use to define the experience we like to drive in the most profound way is the word uncompromised. I think since the inception of the company, we've always believed very strongly that you want to have a no restriction, no compromise access play to your home cable or satellite content without any type of restrictions. That could be no geo-blocking. You see that very often with OTT services. If you step over the Canadian border, you get blocked out. If you go to Asia or you go to Europe, typically most OTT services will block you out. So we believe in no compromise access to your content. Over time, we've expanded the functionality of a Slingbox to go originally from just PCs with internet access to now mobile devices, because people do want to do video snacking and watch their cable and satellite content on mobile devices more increasingly. So big thing for us is really no compromise, no restrictions, and the ability to watch your content on any type of device you have, anywhere you are in the world.
So you have a situation now where, as content moves OTT, you have the unfortunate effect that actually you have a fragmentation of usage and interactions and accounts you need to create and credit cards and all of this, very complicated. So to your question, what I see happening over the very next few years, and it's already starting to happen, is actually a battle to fight this and have partnership and have from the device manufacturers to the service providers to the content providers to again simplify the interaction and the user interface for consumers. The risk being, when this doesn't happen, that the fragmentation actually decreases the usage of content.
So along the same lines of what you've already heard, I think what we're noticing with our clients is that there's the whole notion of search and discoverability is taking a whole new meaning. So it's been important for the last many years, but especially with over-the-top content and what it's doing to the traditional television and other traditional media, is the fact that when a consumer wants to watch something, they're starting to select at one common location and the results tell them that, okay, this piece of content is available across these 10 venues. And it could be your Netflix subscription or an EST service or what have you. So I think that this is going to continue to propagate, and it's also changing the consumer behavior on what they watch and how they consume it.
Excellent. So I heard mobile. I'm going to start there. As we look at user experience and behavior. And Scott Holmes, I'm going to direct this at you and then invite the other panelists to jump in. But what's the role of mobile devices in creating new entertainment experiences? In other words, what I'd like to, and I think the audience would be very interested in hearing, is this just that now, I carry my phone with me, maybe even into the bathroom, and so therefore, if I want to watch something, this is the most natural, it's right in front of me. So is it just a viewing device, or is there something inherent in the mobile devices of today that give us entertainment experiences that transcend the TV? Very interested to get some reaction. But
yeah.
Scott, start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, let me make a distinction that mobile also, I would include the tablet.
Absolutely.
So, so I think we're really going to go away from the PC and to the tablet and the mobile device. And from a user perspective and experience, mobile can mean different things. Yes, I could watch content on a tablet or even my cell phone, but more importantly, it really becomes my navigation. It becomes my electronic programming guide. It becomes how I navigate it. I might want to search something and save it for later. I might want to flip it up onto the TV, which those technologies are becoming much better. So it really doesn't matter what the ultimate end device is that I'm going to be viewing content. I'm going to be managing it from here, and I'm going to be managing whether it's my whether it's my subscription services or whether it's my programming guide or whether it's an application. And where it really gets interesting, and I'll turn it over after this, is what gets interesting is mobile now becomes a single channel opportunity. So when we hear about all these devices and networks and content creators that are going directly to the consumer, well, how are they going directly to the consumer? It's via an app, right? So those apps become channels on your mobile device. And it used to be that people would watch anywhere, or actually navigate anywhere from, let's say, 8 to 10 television stations, and probably 14 to 16, 14 to 18 websites. They would typically traffic during a given week or month. And now with this, we're talking close to a couple of dozen apps or more that they're going to have on a device. So we actually have more real estate on this phone than ever before. The question is how do we deliver great content and experience to have them actually participate?
One thing I would add to that, I would also almost expand the definition of mobile to include devices like Amazon Fire TV Stick and Roku Stick and other solutions like that. For example, with the Sling box, and this is functionality we've added over the last couple of years, you can carry that with you. Stick is about that large. And when you get to your hotel room, and you get some other remote location, you plug it into the HDMI port of a TV set, and you can enjoy all your content in your home, and especially local content. We should talk a little bit about local content, how important that is. But you can enjoy that experience in a mobile-type manner on a large-screen device, and I think that's a pretty exciting development that's happened over the last few years.
Yeah.
What technologies are driving these experiences? So, is there any fundamental technology? We hear Android, for example, you mentioned the Fire products.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a driver? Are there any other technologies that?
I think it's more platform-based. I think it's really more the pipes are getting faster, they're getting larger, they're getting more inexpensive. Even LTE connections now have enough bandwidth that you can deliver a very, very good high-definition experience that wasn't true 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, if I can add to the initial question of the role of mobile, I have a two-part answer. I definitely agree it's a device where you manage and track your entertainment consumption. Just imagine yourself Monday morning at the water cooler conversation, you hear about a new show, you're not going to go back to your laptop immediately or even to your living room TV to search for that. So you do want to have a app handy where you can manage and track those that program that you'll be interested in. And the second answer is really regarding the social media. I mean, a lot of content consumption happens on Facebook, and more so in the coming future on Facebook, YouTube, obviously. Mobile is definitely a place where that type of social media consumption happens and will continue to grow.
There are new monetization mechanisms, I think, that we as the consumer don't even know that we're starting to enable the content owners on how to tap into this pocket that nobody knew existed before. If you take a look what happens on Twitter, for instance, we're servicing Twitter, we're the underlying backbone for that organization, and we see an uptake in what's actually happening with Vine and these little tiny 6-second segments of video that you see there. What is happening is that people have the app up there, see a small little clip, and the clip is now linked to a piece of content that may be streaming linearly on a television feed that comes from an affiliate or a network or a broadcast or a news organization. And so the content owners are taking advantage of social media right now to drive the consumer from the app now back into the content that is going on somewhere. So I think we're going to see a lot more convergence with regards to social media and networks taking advantage of the social aspect, driving business models to the content owner.
Interesting.
And I would add one enabling technology that's helping all of this is the ability to cast content from your device in your hand to the TV on the wall. And I think that's really helping people not only discover content on their phones and tablets, but to be able to then, if it's a sitcom or a long form, to be able to watch it on their big screen TVs.
Yeah, and on this, mobile will be the solution to the clunky smart TV UIs that you control with these clunky remotes. You also solve the problem of personalization that is linked usually to an account when accounts are shared in the family where your phone is personalized.
AJ mentioned technologies just now. I'd like to chime in with regards to, does a consumer really care that a piece of media is delivered in a specific format, which is ultimately the content owner's biggest headache right now. If I want to be on an Xbox, on an Android, on an iPhone, on a Roku box, do I really have to think as a content owner to deliver it in HLS and HDS and in Microsoft formats? What is it, streaming? Smooth stream, there you go. I'm blanking here on that. But the content, the end user really doesn't care. They care about the bits and bytes that now get delivered to the device, but not in what format. And so I think we're starting to see right now, just as there was consolidation in all of the OVPs, all of a sudden disappearing into larger organizations, that there's consolidation on the format war that was going on. When's the last time that you heard about WMV files, MOV files? Now everybody's talking about MPEG-2, MPEG-4, HLS. And now those few formats that are left standing, I think the easier the workflow is for a content owner to reach a particular device, the better I think it will end up being for the consumer in the long run. Spinning wheels, I mean, I know this is a question that you have later on, but from an experience point of view, I think it takes 2 to 4 seconds to lose a customer when they don't have an immediate startup on a piece of media. They're going to go switch over to something else. Not something to take lightly right now, but from a technology perspective, the protocols we use to deliver the bits and bytes are key in the success of these new experiences.
I've got some CE device experience, and one of the things that I've seen happening, and it's really accelerated over the last maybe 12 or 18 months, is now even your very lightweight, low-cost CE devices support ubiquitously the base codecs, DRMs, the base technologies, and so that's why now you have much better support across devices, whereas some of us may remember even just 3-4 years ago, what you could view on a service on the Roku box was different than what I could get on my Samsung TV, might be different than on my Xbox. And so that's a great improvement for the consumer. So what's the role of the TV? And we're talking about new entertainment experiences, and I'd like to, we're talking about mobile, and clearly we all agree that mobile is very important to the future, but I think we also would agree that the TV is still ultimately where consumers want to watch at least a certain amount of their content. So panelists, what's the role of the TV? I mean, is the TV shrinking down to a 9-inch tablet?
It won't. It won't. What's
happening?
We all live somewhere. We all have a house. We have an apartment. We're going to go home. We sit on the couch. Am I really going to sit there now and going to consume this on a 320 by 240 screen when I have a chance of a 80-inch television? I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. Televisions are going to stick around. How the content actually arrives at the television is what's changing. What I need is a large monitor. I don't want to refuse calling it a television. I need a large screen in order to really immerse myself into certain experiences, right? But I don't think the TV as this screen will ever go away in a household. It's just not going to happen.
And I would argue that one of the great disappointments over the last probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years with the appearance of quote smart TVs, there's really nothing smart about them. In that, in the fact that there's probably a very significant percentage of folks in this room that have a smart TV of some size at home, and I would bet you that 99% of you never use the smart TV interface because the TV manufacturers are just not good at it. I mean, and that's why the Rokus of the world, I like to think Slingbox to a degree, and other companies have done a really nice job making that user experience a much more favorable, much more interactive. And I think that's still an opportunity, frankly. It can only get better. Discoverability, I'm sure we're going to talk about discoverability of content, but I think that's one of the interesting thing that's happened is that people are just not utilizing the smart capability of these TVs that have been coming out the last few years.
Yeah, so the smart TVs have been trying to mimic the usage of a phone with a lot of applications. Yeah, the problem fundamentally is that we all use our phones in many different ways. Like if you run, it's going to manage your heartbeat, you listen to music, you play games, you send emails, you do all those things. And the TVs went that route as pretending that there was a screen where people will do all those things. We're seeing already, like at CES, there was a lot of manufacturers are pulling back while they still push the smart TV. Actually, some features are being pushed in the background, or the key feature to enable watching movies and TV shows of sorts is being pushed on the forefront. And as we talked before, a lot of that is going to move in some type of smarter remote and a dumb TV.
So, Christoph, I'd like you to comment because MGO has apps, right? You have an iOS and Android app.
iOS, Android, Roku.
And you're also
yes.
baked into Samsung and LG and maybe others. Tell us real quick, what was the difference of developing for the app compared to the TV? Were you able to create some new experiences on the TV or on the mobile device, or was it largely just preserving across the platforms the MGO experience?
Yeah, so our approach has been actually to only work with people that have the interest in making consumer experiences that work really well, and it's not actually so broad in the industry. To do that, you have to control your full stack, and a lot of the manufacturers have outsourced a lot of the pieces. So they have a hard time actually to really manage that. They buy a chip that comes with some software and they plug things together. But I'm seeing this changing, as mentioned before, fairly fast. There's, of all the manufacturers that we talk to, there's initiatives to really bring back the experience of watching content as the primary function as those of those devices, and pushing the more seldom used application more in the background. And you're going to see that actually CES showed a lot of those this summer, and it continue over the next 2 or 3 years. We'll see the experience being pushed first, and the manufacturers that don't do that are going to lose market share.
It's excellent insight. So I do want this to be an interactive session, so I would invite questions, and I'll even pause right now if there's some questions. So.
For those of us that aren't technical, and not here right now, could you just elaborate on that a little bit about what is going to come to the forefront in the next 2 or 3 years?
Right. So
Okay, I'm sorry. For the video, I'm just going to repeat the question just so that those watching, and then, sorry. So the question was, for those who may not be as techie, what is coming over the next 2 or 3 years that we should be aware of?
I'll give you one example, and then you'll hear from people actually that can really help with search and discovery. But a very simple example. You want to watch a new title, Interstellar, today. You can go on a service and have the option of prices. You'll see everyone at $3.99 or $4.99 rental. The original idea was like the more we can give options to customers, the better. The reality is that if once in a blue moon there's a title that is $1 cheaper on another service, as a consumer, I no need to go into an app store, download an application, go on the web, register my TV on the web, create an account, add my credit card, all of this either on the web or worse on a D-pad remote control. It's going to take 20 minutes. I'm not going to do that. All that to save $1 on a $3,000 TV, right? So the changes being made, or that need to be made, is actually to push content first and to simplify from consumer. I heard that before, from the consumer. As a consumer, you want to turn your TV on, either being told something that will be great for you, or have a few options that make sense for you, and drilling down, buying or renting, or in your SVOD or AVOD or whatever system you have, bring play and watch back. That is the TV experience. Anything that prevents people from having a seamless experience is a disaster and has failed as in the smart TV world. But this is changing fast.
But just a quick
The interfaces, I think, have to get way more intuitive than they are today. When you go onto a programming guide and you try to search for a certain show, why can't whatever device this is on, remember that you might be interested in crime drama, or you're interested in comedy. And so now the next time around, it actually feeds you what you saw the last time that you pulled up this particular show. Maybe you want the episode to the left that's coming up, or the episode to the right that was in the past, and it starts to remember it. What we're going to see is new interfaces, and it's being built right now, that are intuitive based on your selection of what content you're actually watching. And at that point in time, your interaction with the device will increase. You're going to start to consume more, instilling binge watching, because you want to see what's the episode before or after, et cetera, et cetera. And with regards to the content owners, how they're thinking about this right now is they're all sitting on vast libraries of content, VOD assets that are stored somewhere that cost them money. So how do they start monetizing this? If you don't search for a particular asset and then pull that up on a device, they're not making the money. They have to pay for it because storage charges, even in today's world, they accrue over time. There are business models being developed right now that you will probably see by the end of this year where these VOD assets will be literally daisy-chained together into alternate experiences, ultimately creating virtual linear feeds based on preferences that you may have on a particular genre or sports interest or whatever else that is. And that will drive the content owners to produce over and over, more and more channels. As the unbundling happens, you're going to see more and more people having maybe 5 or 6 or 10 different ABC channels, each one specific to a certain genre.
That's exactly right. And 2 points again there. What you mentioned is the enhancement of the searchability and discoverability of the content. And I want to say that Rovi is already there. We do have those next generation search and recommendation solutions that are personalized, that remember the type of content you watch, also what your interactions are in the social media, what type of likes you had on Facebook. And our advanced search and rec engines can surface the relevant content to you based on your social circle and your viewing behavior. And to that, the key piece is really metadata. And I'm saying that not only that I'm part of a metadata company, but the metadata needs to be dynamic. And Rovi has been moving over the past couple of years towards the change from a static metadata to a dynamic metadata. Static metadata meaning something that has been written by an editor or some core attributes that has been attached to a content that's probably sitting on the VOD on a VOD library for 20 years and not being changed for the last 20 years. Today, we have the ability to collect social signals, news signals, trending signals from the web and update the metadata dynamically so we can surface to the user what's relevant to them at that point in time in that location, and based on what's happening on the internet and in terms of news and trending. And also the other point here, very important, is from a content owner point of view. As you said, the library sits there unmonetized. And again, because that potentially that metadata has been written for that content 30, 20 years ago, and just like ratings on TV, they change over time. Some content that was popular 20 years ago maybe is not popular now, or the reverse. So offering the content owners the ability to wrap around their content a dynamic set of metadata that's fed and built based on the signals on the internet out there on every day, it's key to monetizing those assets.
Great point on metadata there for sure. It's becoming more important. One question I had was, or a point was, taking a broader issue, I think, with smart TV apps is just the sheer number of them, right? So, we all have smart TVs and there's literally dozens and dozens of apps on there. The question I have is, as long as we have 10 companies such as MGO providing the same, offering the same content, how do the people deciding how to bring, what to bring forward or to take it back, for a title like Interstellar, for example, every retailer says, if you're going to push one forward, we want it to be ours. So is there a solution to that? I was just curious from Christoph, from the example you gave.
I actually want to jump in on that one because it's interesting because what is old is new again. Well, I guess we could say the same thing about the evening news, right? They all have the same news on, but are you going to watch ABC, CBS or NBC, et cetera? And it really becomes a consumer loyalty game at some point, right? So, I heard earlier in regards to, how content, consumers will be navigating content, and they don't want to go through the trouble or the hurdle of having to sign up for different services just to get a piece of content for $1 less. Well, that's a great example of what consumer experiences we'll start to see is you will have choices, and sometimes the choices will be overwhelming. It also comes down to if I'm going to access something, and why I say, mobile, even though you're going to be watching it on a much larger screen, is oftentimes 68%, in fact, I think even more, are, people have their phone even while watching TV with a large screen viewing behavior.
Guilty as charged.
Yep. So, if we as technology providers, content creators, the ecosystem, if we cannot provide these types of seamless services for the consumer, well, the consumer's just going to find it themselves, and they're going to flip it up to the screen. So, they've often pushed us as companies to make better experiences because their demands are even greater than what the industry sometimes is able to get behind and provide.
And for titles like Interstellar, consolidation is happening, has happened, will continue to happen. So less providers for the same content. Over the last 12 months, like a lot of people have left the space. For the rest of the content will be actually differentiation. We talked about like dynamic metadata, which will also expect like dynamic content. There is so much valuable content from, yes, the major studios, MCNs, international, and you name it. There's more content you can ever watch. So the more a service will understand each and every of its customers and has ability to quickly onboard content, including with partnership like almost in real time, the more your channels will get personalized. Like we all see different ads, but we see the same content. It'd be great to see different content too.
Excellent. Fabulous discussion. So one thing that I'm conscious I've not heard anyone mention or talk about is the importance or lack of importance to video quality. So here you've got 4K TVs. Nowadays, Qualcomm and other chip vendors are pushing chipsets into mobile devices that actually make them little 4K, media players, renderers. So what, from each of your perspectives, what's the importance of video quality? Is the consumer not dialed into that? Is it all about the experience, or do they care? Or
I watch my kids. If they want to watch a show and I see that they dial up channel 52 instead of channel 552, which happens to be in HD, they don't care. All they want to know is that this is the show that I want to watch. The question that I have about 4K and the quality, as amazing as it is, do I really need 4K on a mobile device? Didn't we just establish here on the panel that this is the device that probably controls a lot of that? And flicking, a high quality video up on a television, I get that the television itself may go there, but I also think that there is some marketing behind this, that the studios and the television manufacturers are pushing a lot. With regards, what's the reason for somebody to buy a new television today? Well, if it's not 4K, the next thing is going to be 8K. What is, UHD, HDR, and all of that? What's the next innovation on a television?
Well, it's very, very hard to future-proof yourself forever, which I think the point you're making. But I think the point I would disagree with is that the jump from standard definition to high definition over the last 10 or 15 years has been so dramatic that it's hard for me to argue that Slingbox wouldn't be as successful as it is if we could not deliver a high-def experience on both an LTE, a cellular connection, and a Wi-Fi connection. For us, that's critical. The jump from high definition to 4K, I would agree that, there's very, very little content out there to begin with, but it's very, very hard to discern. When you're going from SD to high def, it's dramatic. It's like the 1950s to the 21st century. When you're going from high definition to 4K, it looks great at your Best Buy, but I'm not sure that experience is so riveting that you have to have it. But from my perspective, I think high definition is so critical, especially for sports. I mean, you watch a football game in standard def versus high def. I mean, it's a biblically changing experience for a lot of people. This is for me.
So I have a slightly different approach. Like for me, quality is paramount. I've seen so many people seeing for the first time a 4K HDR video and being stuck in front of the screen watching absolutely random content, documentaries or anything else, and being stuck and watch that. And until you've seen like this quality, it's difficult to explain. But it's coming this year. You will see a little bit of HDR on 4K. It'll take a few years to be available everywhere. But it's as big. 4K by itself is interesting. We do that with the largest collection of 4K I think, in the world. But it's the premise of what's coming next, which is this year and coming after with HDR, which is absolutely stunning. There was several demos at CES that really, for me, is as much as a gap from SD to HD, and every experience that we've done with consumers have been absolutely brilliant. Now the difficulty comes into delivering them to the home with the bandwidth. This is where technology needs to come in place to deliver those experiences. But there's no question that the advancements are worth it for consumers and ultimately for content makers.
And so how is MGO delivering? Because these bit rates, for those, first of all, let me get a quick show of hands, I'll finish my question. Who owns a 4K or UHD TV? Anybody in the room? Okay. Who's seen, maybe even just CES demo? Okay, so most of us. How about HDR? Who's seen an HDR demo? Okay. Now, just again, quick survey. 4K versus an HDR, which one was more impactful to you? HDR. Okay, all right. So I'm not necessarily trying to make a judgment about, does a consumer care about resolution? I think, to Christoph's point, when the consumer does get in front of 4K and HDR, they're hooked. There is a difference. But my question to you, Christoph, is the bit rates to deliver, even we might say a highly compressed 4K signal is, can be 15 megabits. It's nice to get to 10. But so what techniques are you using? Is there anything that you're willing to, share or talk about to be able to make it streamable? Because at the end of the day, if it buffers, it can look great, but, the consumer isn't going to enjoy it as much.
Right. So the first element is for sure a buffering time. We talked about quality here. You buffer once, you buffer twice, it's over. Not only over for this movie, you may lose the customer forever. It's very brutal. So guaranteeing playback, including mobile, where you have a lot of even LTE we all here in Los Angeles, it can be very spotty. Once you have the bandwidth in place, usually the 10 to 15 is what you need to have for those new resolutions. However, you can spend time when you do your encodes by doing multipass, encryption, encoding, and all of that to go below 10. Later statistics seems to be about 30 to 35% of people in the United States being able to reach those bit rates.
I think the science is in figuring out the profile sets required. I think adaptive bitrate streaming technology, even for 4K, becomes key. Now, what is that profile set in the higher range between 10 and 15? I think is the science. Nobody has figured that one out yet because bandwidth fluctuates, but I think that will become a focus. 4K, I agree, it probably will not go away. That's the next thing around the corner. But in order to, have the ISP, which of course I'm one of, a piece, there needs to be a fallback solution. What if I don't have the bandwidth that is required right now? Like Christoph just said, one or twice a buffering, you're gone. And ABR, in my opinion, will solve that problem. You may degrade the quality somewhat, but not to the degree that you lose the consumer.
That's right.
Well, and of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Beamr, because that actually has been a tremendous advantage when you can reduce the bit rate and still deliver the quality. And I want to actually mention one other thing, going back on a prior question, is when we, again, the consumer tells us, right? The consumer really is the driver of all this. And when you watch, when you're surfing content, via the web or via Apple TV or whatever device you might have over the top, there's nothing worse than getting a standard def on a 60-inch screen and the whole thing is pixelated. I didn't actually hear anybody mention that specifically, and I think the people that are taking a really amazing advantage is, even though they're delivering content or producing content or making content for the web, is that they're delivering it in high quality. Right? And if they're able to deliver that, and it's detection that we're going to send this to a larger screen and deliver that and go from an SD to a high def or or greater, that experience, that channel, and we're seeing MCNs do this quite a bit, multi-channel networks, is that they're starting to gain an audience because they're catching, especially that 35 and under demographic, they're catching them surfing and tapping into something, and if they can watch that, not always on the phone, but to the screen, then now they've got a new customer, and they're able to deliver experience just as good as any network or any operator.
Yeah, and to add to that, the quality of the viewing experience needs to be intrinsically linked to the place where that experience is happening. As you just described, if you're on your living room in your nice couch and watching a 60-inch screen, you expect high quality. If you're at a check stand in a supermarket and you just want to quickly digest a few bits of video, you would be okay with a lower quality. So the content owner and the distributor needs to be very aware of the place where their content gets consumed by the end user.
Excellent. Okay, well, we could clearly
My question is, for those of us that are highly prolific and have hundreds of everybody out there in Hollywood doesn't know how to make large-scale content. And it's like they only want to talk about the first 5 things or the first 10 things to make. And with you all being on the cutting edge of delivering the interface, would we start going on the cutting edge of reducing the cost of production? And I don't mean on YouTube, I mean a quality show like Entertainment Tonight, for example. Because, I clicked into Netflix and I watched House of Cards and then I cut my subscription off. Because everything else I really wasn't interested in. And, original programming for us content developers, that's where we sit. And so, I've watched all the movies. It only takes me 3 weeks to sit down on a Saturday and just go, I watched Orange is the New Black straight, the whole season. I watched Breaking Bad, the whole season straight. Just went up and got a Pepsi out of the fridge, done. And then I disconnected. So, how can we make for the content development, not buying content so bad, content out there is, how can the really cutting edge thinkers out there, the content creators, how can we make making content at larger scale a lot more streamlined, a lot more efficient, and not have to go through all these small channels to get to something big?
You want to repeat that?
okay, so repeat the question for the video. Actually, I think that the core of the question is I can summarize in a sentence. So basically, for someone, if I understand it, for someone who's a prolific content creator, how can technology enable getting that content out to a wide audience? Is really what you're saying. So.
I guess and this is really outside of the Slingbox mission, but products like Roku, for example. I mean, Roku is in such a wonderful job of really becoming a network. I mean, unlike Apple and Apple TV, and that may change in the next couple of months, but they're a rather closed system. You look at Roku and the model they've taken is that they are not they have chosen not to be in the content development business, unlike a Netflix which develops their own content. It would seem to me that what Roku does would be something consistent with addressing the challenge you have, because it's pretty easy, frankly, creating a channel and having, the Mark Venus show. Nobody would watch it, but you could have a lot of content on that. There's just the discoverability issue, because they have, I think, 2,000 channels, 2,500 channels, which is huge. But Roku does a pretty good job of doing of the discoverability piece. So Am I getting to where you're trying to?
I think this is the next wave. I think there's a lot of creative talent out here that we've been stuck in pitch a show, to your agent, get your agent, get the show up, use your rights to digital. Now we're at a point where we're like, well, you know, when I went in to pitch that show, I took that out of my top 300 ideas. And now we're at a point where I don't need to have the network say, that's the show I want. I have 300 ideas, all 300 can go. They might be good, better, you know, good, better, best. But the point is that I can have that hit show up, retain my digital rights, put my own channel up, and keep my 300 shows going, and they don't have to compete with 300 ideas.
So,
There's quite a bit of pay-as-you-go models out there where you should think in terms of going direct to consumer. If you don't want to go YouTube, which is ultimately the free way of doing things today, and that is not your outlet, there are plenty of services out there where even with the libraries that you may have right now, you don't get penalized putting those libraries on board or online right away. It is literally based on a pay-as-you-go model. If you know that you're going to get 1,000 subscribers, well, charge those 1,000 subscribers and do the math on, does your operating expense, you know, carry the subscription service that you're charging right now? Does that carry the cost model? So I think going direct instead of trying to, like you just pointed out, the issue with content producers and owners, that they lose the rights. Why is there are a lot of people trying to get away from YouTube. They all of a sudden became popular, and with popularity comes greed. Because a lot of the advertising is now going into Google, and they're trying to figure out, well, how can I keep you there, right? It's your content. So I think at that point in time, you need to start thinking in terms of going direct to the consumer and find the right platform to do that.
Yeah, and I would answer this question very differently in that we have, you know, I would say that it's already happening. You are looking at multi-channel networks such as Fullscreen, Maker, Awesomeness TV. I mean, this is exactly what they're doing. They're crowdsourcing, they're crowdfunding. There's a group called Tongle, if you're not familiar with them, that are crowdsourcing creative, and they have 60,000 directors that are on staff. Well, they're not staff. they're essentially on the network and available to start creating content. And you also have the branding, or the brands themselves. If you're familiar with Marriott actually opening up an original programming budget. So, you know, you've got everybody making original programming, and you've got these MCNs that are out there. They're taking discoverability actually in a different way. They're looking at, well, we'll just create as many channels as you want, and the consumer's going to tell us what's good. And then that information, there's only about 2%, right? Go figure. There's about 2% that really is meaningful and gets the most views, and that's fine for these MCNs, because all their advertising is going to be, you know, the cream rises to the crop, and that's where they get most of their revenue, right, off the advertising off of that. But it is happening. The cost of production has come down so much and so drastically, and the producers and directors are just, you know, they're finding new ways to reach the consumer. And one more thing is movies have even started to release direct to the consumer. There's movie launches that are happening that are on an application and launching directly to the consumer for a small fee, and it's working.
Yeah. It's excellent. This is a good pivot to. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let me pivot, do a couple, and then I'll open up for some more questions. So it's great. Thank you for being interactive. So this is a great pivot to talk about content access. So you know, what's really exciting to me about OTT and mobile and everything we're talking about is that now I can take the content outside the four walls of my home to wherever I am. So whether that's vacation, my hotel room, my, you know, wherever that might be. So looking at content access, so the rise of the virtual MVPDs, you know, which is actually really great, because we've been hearing in Digital Hollywood and every other conference, you know, about digital for the last 3-4 years. This is the year of the virtual MVPD. Well, this is the year. Sling TV, Sony launching their service, Verizon made a big acquisition of Intel's OnQ. And so I guess I'm curious what the panel's reaction is. You know, some are looking on and saying these are experiments, and you know, will they stick? Will they not? You know, are they here to stay? Are these experiments by some of these very large MSOs and MVPDs to, you know, extend their footprints? You know, what's the general feeling about the future regarding these virtual services?
Well, I mean, you mentioned Sling TV, and I know a little bit about that because we're a sister company, the Dish Networks, which has announced the Sling TV service. I can assure you that it's not an experiment. I'm sure Charlie would absolutely agree that this is not an experiment. I think it's important to point out that these services and these capabilities really address different types of users and different ways the market has evolved over the last few years. There's over 100 million households that have cable TV or satellite. Millennials classically is a target audience that feels very, very comfortable with OTT services, whether it's Netflix. Sling TV is a great offering because it has live channels for a very inexpensive price, and there's little bundles you can tack on if you want more channels. But a Sling TV and a Sling Box are dramatically different solutions. I mean, Sling Box is really aimed at folks who are really who have an existing cable subscription. But I don't think the movement. Let's see how the rest of the panel reacts to this. But I don't think any of these services are experiments in the true sense. It's certainly not an experiment with Sling TV.
Well, there would be very expensive experiences. I mean, after all of the acquisitions that have occurred there, I think what everybody's preparing for, and if you know how expensive the broadcast and network world can be, satellite uplink and downlink is something that everybody's preparing for. It's going to be a thing of the past. We have IP right now. We have IP delivery. IPTV is the way to go. I don't need to have 20 different hubs to reach a corner of the world. I put it into one place, and all of a sudden it is available to everybody in the world. So I think the bets are already made. Everybody that is playing in that OTT world right now is saying, in the long run, that's the way how television will be delivered or content will be delivered, and I won't rely on having to have a satellite or hubs, uplink, downlink in the middle of it.
Yeah, I believe it's part of this trend of segmentation of the user and where and how they watch content. If there is a need, there's always going to be a supply. If there is a demand, there is a supply, or a supply will be created. But the key point is how will the user be able to watch that content in a unified way and not necessarily go through hoops to watch different content through different interfaces and different types of apps. So having a universal and unified, again, way to interact with all the content that's available on live television, on VOD, on your recording or streaming devices, it's key. And I don't want to pitch again, but having that way to connect the content to the experience through either dynamic metadata or the ability for the interface to find that content based on the metadata, it's critical to surfaces that content in the most effective way.
I think the experimentation actually took place a few years ago. I believe there were a couple of companies that had tried to do some sort of an a la carte service, and they didn't quite survive that. So I forget the name. So this one's definitely not an experiment, as the panelists have said. You know, I think what's happening is these service providers are now coming up with a lot of lessons learned, and the services like Sling TV are actually quite pragmatic if you think about it, and they're fighting the establishment also in many ways because they're able to. So I do believe that the age of so-called skinny bundles is upon us.
And I would argue, too, that OTT capabilities, OTT services have accommodated or have nurtured, one of the audience members talked about it, this whole behavior around binge watching. That did not exist in the linear world. And again, I am not a screenwriter, I'm not a producer of content, but I think that opens up enormous possibilities if you're developing content where you can take a story. You know, carve it into 10 or 15 episodes, a la House of Cards, and really drive an entire story that someone could watch, can watch an entire season in the afternoon with a couple of Cokes. I think it's incredible from a creativity standpoint.
Well, and I have to say one more thing, and that, we keep hearing about cord cutters, and last I checked, I thought we lived in a wireless world. So it's not a matter of are people going to cut the cord. There's not going to be a cord. And, in fact, any millennial audience, anybody under the age of 30, quite frankly, that I've spoken to, it's just not in their behavior. And so, this is going to have to be a over the top, again, for me, just means, how do you take legacy services, how do you start to deliver them directly to the consumer when the consumer wants them? And I'm not trying to this is not an announcement, but we're actually even talking to hoteliers in areas where, it's just, to me, if I rent a movie, if I watch a movie at a hotel and, I fall asleep and then I can't take it with me, that's kind of silly. Well, why not, be able to have an overlaid service where I can actually have as a wireless service, I can take it to the pool, anywhere on property, but I could actually, if I wanted to, I could pay for it and I could own it. So it doesn't exist. So we're experimenting with these types of new capabilities that will absolutely be the future.
But the problem is not if it's happening, because it is happening. The problem is how much are we going to see of a wallet cutter? Because the sum of the parts, unfortunately, at the moment, seems going to be as big as your cable bill. Or bigger.
Yeah, that's a very interesting observation. In fact, I had a question here. I don't need to ask it now, but it is true that the unbundling, if you really create your own bundle, in most cases you'll spend as much, if not even more. So,
skinny bundles.
That's right, skinny bundles. I like
wallet.
it. Okay, so another thing, and Rolf, I think this one, would be of interest. This question, and I'd like your response. So, the FCC is moving to potentially open up MVPD classification for online distributors, which has very interesting ramifications for affiliates who traditionally have relied on their distribution partners, their big pay TV services. You run a network, and I'm speaking more of Edgecast. Are you seeing opportunities with local channels going over the top? Because in this whole discussion, and I'm speaking of affiliates who can now deliver their content, in this whole discussion, the one thing that you notice we haven't talked about is sports. Because sports is tough because how much it costs, and local channels. We all know what happened to Aereo and some other solutions. So I'm curious if you can give some reaction, comments,
Given that NAB was just at the beginning of the month, there was an onslaught of interest level from station groups. So if you don't know exactly what the FCC is regulating there, so maybe a couple of words of explanation. The FCC is considering granting rebroadcast rights similar to what they did with VHS in 1976, where they said you can record this show, you can consume it once, but when you take that VHS tape over to your neighbor and you watch it with them, you're breaking the law. The FCC is now regulating, saying if there are broadcast rights that the affiliates pick up, the FCC will grant the rights to the affiliate to take what they picked up on the national feed and rebroadcast that locally in their DMA and in their DMA only. So, having said this and understand the dynamic now, the affiliate makes money by selling their content to the MVPDs, the big guys that are out there, the Comcast, the Verizons, the Coxes, and etc., that are out there. Now, with the FCC lifting those regulations, that's the first time that an affiliate can actually go out and now go direct to the consumer with the content that they may be picking up from a network or a broadcaster. That is a big, big shift in the entire politics here. And judging by what we've just experienced at NAB, Sinclair, Graham Media, Hearst, Tribune, all of those guys are knocking on our door saying, so how can we actually do this, that we pick up a national feed that is IP-based instead of satellite delivered, and now strike deals with the content owners directly to get their local news, their local ad avails into the playout and restrict it to the DMA in the area that they have purview or permissions to. And by the end of this year, I think this will be an old hat. What's happening right now, and we're in discussions with, I don't know, some 210 different affiliates already, they are all on the cusp of doing this for the first time, taking their local news, local ad avails, and putting them online. And it's anyone's guess right now how successful this will be, but to the affiliate, it's the first time that they can monetize without sharing the ad dollars that they had to give up to the MVPDs.
But also to the consumer now, I get a more complete entertainment experience because
Correct.
now I get access to the local channels. Yeah, local news, etc. So this is a pretty big deal, and watch it closely. Okay, now perfect time for a question. Oh, okay.
My question has to do with changes in service offerings. You gentlemen see MVPDs will essentially retrench into marketing services. If they will retrench those offer broadband services, we've heard the need for extreme broadband. Obviously, you has a program looking for all schools is unfuture, and some of the companies understand why on this program. Our research indicates that, this concept is actually being studied by those MPPs that do in fact own the network. So we've heard about the rise of the virtual MPP. We've heard that all this OTT world is not an experiment, and that's proven that it's not. But do you see a time when MPPs might actually have a B2B relationship with content, a la what Verizon is doing with Edgecast, and favoring that in lieu of a B2C relationship via the traditional offering of services, which is, in the admission of most MPPD strict strategies, not really that popular?
Okay, so again, I'll do the quick rephrase. So the question is, do the panelists see a scenario the MVPDs could retrench, either completely away or de-emphasize their B2C offer, and either, I suppose, just go data only, offer just data, or go B2B, offer a B2B offer, but not B2C? And I think there's really only one person that this that this applies
I have to be careful what
Rolf?
I say there. So, being an MVPD, but also offering OTT services, we're basically competing with each other. Verizon has made a decision, and that was actually announced a couple of months ago, to sell off their Fios services in California, Texas, and Florida. You've all read this, and that was a bit, wow, what are you guys doing? That is the buy-in all the way up to the CEO, Lowell McAdams, into the next round of the way television will be delivered will not be through a cable subscription. It will be through an OTT deal that we as a service provider have to strike now with the content owners directly. And I'm not saying this is going to be easy because the content owners could go direct, but over what network? And now we're starting to think in terms of net neutrality. There's been a lot of that in the press. I'm not going to comment on that either, otherwise I lose my job. But the idea behind it really is you need something to deliver the content to a household. Okay, so the unbundling of the television services that are provided may happen, but not necessarily the network aspect of it, because you still need Wi-Fi. Well, how do you think Wi-Fi works? In the future, and this might be 5-10 years out, I think things like multicast and cell tower reception will probably help in getting content closer to the household instead of having a fiber actually coming in, which is very, very expensive. which is the reason why Verizon decided we need to sell these services and focus on just the delivery of the bits and bytes, not the television necessarily services that we're charging for, but the bits and bytes of the network that is needed to get the content from some other content owner. So the deals, the way they are being struck right now, and there's been a lot of press about that as well on OnQ, is there will be new business models that we're seeking. And similar to how an MVPD strikes a deal with the content owner, negotiations will have to take place on, will this go in direct OTT now be a carriage deal in the traditional sense, where a content owner sells advertising rights back to the MVPD and vice versa. So the end of the story, or the result of that is OTT is a continuation of the traditional way of receiving television, but the monetization aspect and the deals that have to be struck between the content owner and the service provider, such as Verizon, may be very, very different because now the dynamics are different. I mean, we're also a wireless network where a lot of this content could, be consumed through. So the deals are now not just only focusing on the carriage agreements and how much of an ad avail will I get for my own promo purposes or whatever else that is. But maybe the content owner says, if I deliver it over your network, will you give me rights to deliver over your wireless network as well? So it's very, very interesting what's happening, and I can't speculate or tell you exactly what our intentions are, but you'll see by the stance that Verizon has taken, already getting rid of or selling the services within California, Texas, and Florida that are all Fios based. I think the writing's on the wall. We're betting on OTTs. Way to go.
I'll add something here. Like in the triple play, phone is irrelevant. You're left really to a dual play, which is a movie and bandwidth, or video, TV and bandwidth. So the only question is, the good news is for bandwidth owners, if you have the pipe, more OTT means more bits. More bits means ultimately selling more to the consumer. So you have two options, and if we look in Europe, a lot of the providers of bandwidth also provide TT over IP, TV over IP. The other option is just to move the price, like you have on what happened on wireless, move the price to the consumer and only serve bandwidth, but much bigger pipes. Like Time Warner is serving 300 megabits in a lot of different areas. For example, they were barely given a 50 recently, right? But you have to pay a hefty price for that. But we talk about 4K and all of this, more bandwidth. At the end, it will settle down. You have two different approaches. We'll see who's doing which.
It's excellent. Okay, I was just given a 5-minute warning, so I do want to now officially open it up for questions. Yes.
I really think it depends on the content. I mean, linear feeds are free to air anyhow. So there is the requirement of DRM is minuscule. And we'll see from, the content owners and the networks how lax they are about, there should be encryption, but it shouldn't be DRM'd in a sense, or it doesn't need to be DRM'd in a sense. Now, taking the stance on long-form content, that's a completely different game right now. I think the problem what we're having with DRM is the same problem we have with file format fragmentation. There are too many different approaches There isn't one way of doing it, and that causes all kinds of headache when you're trying to get on 20 different devices. Now, every one of them needs its own SDK and framework in order to decrypt and talk to the licensing servers. There are services and service providers that do this behind the scenes for you. But I think we could make our lives easier if the industry as a whole starts to think in terms of standardizing on what DRM is really required.
So for 4K specifically, there's the SCSA, Secure Content Storage Association, mix of studios, retailers, and storage companies and devices working together for a new format. We're actually, MGO is the only company in the world to support this format today with content from Fox. It's a very high def 4K content you can download to a drive. And this comes with advanced watermarking that can be individualized to the device. So in real time, when you download a movie, the watermarking is specifically attached to a specific device, and you can recognize from which device would a file be extracted.
SCSA.
SCSA.
You guys are members.
Yes.
Who wants to take that?
So the question was, what are the thoughts on DEC?
Yeah.
Ultraviolet.
Are you using it? There's your answer. The idea is brilliant behind it, and everybody bought in on this. Here's the problem, and that you will never address. If I buy a movie on Amazon and store it in a locker, that might be Universal Studios, who now has the same copy that I bought via Amazon. But now it's in a locker on my account on Universal, and I stream this. Who pays for the streaming charges? Even though I bought it from Amazon, did Universal get a penny from it? Maybe because that's where they bought it from. But the streaming charges and the delivery of the content that is kept somewhere has to be paid by somebody. That's where everybody shot themselves in the foot.
Okay, one more question. Okay, the parting question, who's going to win?
I think it's that fruit company out there.
Fruit company? All right.
Actually,
Well,
I will answer with a not so funny, but something we haven't talked about today, which is when you look at the juggernauts of social media, Facebook obviously being the obvious one, is, you know, this is a prediction, by the way. I have no information or news on this whatsoever. But if you get a Facebook that buys a telco, remember when AOL bought Time Warner, right? All of a sudden the game changes, right? Because it's social, it's going to be driven from the community, by the community, and content will actually be, you know, the pipe would essentially be leveraged.
Okay, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Thank you. You've been a great audience. Please join me in thanking the panel.